God just tackled me down to the ground and was like, write this book. For 17 days, I just wrote. And it was just like morning, noon, and night. Tons of artists and people that pursue their dreams have stories just like that. They need to be shared. Why did you write this? Oh. I wish I could have read a book like that when I was first getting started.
That's like an artist's dream. Welcome back to another episode of the Light Movement Podcast. So in this podcast, we're going to be talking about Elli's art career at a glance. Since she's been a professional artist for 25 years, it's gonna be pretty tough to cover that whole entire career in all of its depth and glory in a short podcast like this. And we also have some super exciting news. We have just recently launched Elli's book, Unemployable, The Odyssey of an Artist. So you guys are gonna get some sneak peeks into the book, and you're also going to hear some stories that probably aren't even told in the book. This is gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm super excited to dive into it. So first of all, Elli, why did you decide to title the book Unemployable? How did you come up with that genius name of a title?
I didn't come up with the title of the book. I loved the title, and the second I heard it, it resonated with me. And I've also told people all throughout my life that I'm completely unemployable. Really great title, fits the book perfectly. Mm-hmm. And actually, you came up with the title.
That's right, I did.
So,
do you want to share what the title was before it?
No.
Everyone has a rough draft. I mean, I'm sure that we'll change our title of our book.
Yeah, well, we don't even have a title.
We don't have one yet. Right now, it's just love story.
Super good.
At the time, Jake and two other guys, we would meet every single week, and we went through the book after it had been professionally edited twice. Mm-hmm. Went through it chapter by chapter, discussing it and fine-tuning it, adding stories to it, reworking it, and I was really thankful for that time, and I think they made the book even better because, as Jake said, I had a habit of doing spoiler alerts.
Yeah, that's right. There were tons of spoilers.
So he took out all the spoilers so that it was more suspenseful. You came up with the title, and I think it's a great title.
Well, I guess why did the title resonate with you when I said it?
I think a lot of people fall into this category and they identify with being unemployable because you're so wholeheartedly sold out to your dream and what it is you want to do with your life that there comes a point of no return. Mm-hmm. It's like you passed the event horizon and you can't get back in. You're sucked into, the glorious black hole of your destiny. And you've seen too much, you've felt too much, you know too much. You can't go back. You can't turn the other way and get a 9-to-5 job or do a career change or anything like that. So you're from that point on really unemployable. And besides, I'm just unemployable. I mean, the last job I had was, what was my last job? I worked in a bank.
No, before that you worked,
right?
But
Yeah.
after that, I mean, you worked as an artist.
That's right. That was my last job. That was my last job.
Working an hourly job as an artist.
I worked in a sweatshop.
What made you want? Yeah, that's right. It was a switch.
I worked in a little cubicle of a studio. I was paid, a really measly salary to just knock out as much work as I possibly could. And it was like the I Love Lucy show with the chocolates, on the conveyor belt where they're eating. Look it up on YouTube. It's hilarious. Lucy and Ethel are trying to package the chocolates and the conveyor belt's going so fast they can't keep up, so they start eating them. Mm-hmm. And then their cheeks are full of chocolate, so they start putting them in their hats. So anyway, that was me at the art factory, and I had a stack of blank white canvases, and I would look at the stack getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I just had to keep painting. And if my stack got way too big, by the time the owner came up to inspect, I would be possibly fired.
For some people, it's a really great job to start out as an artist because you learn so much and you get faster at painting.
I have no regrets. The tattoo that's on the guy's face that says no regrets and he spelled it wrong.
No, that's on the guy's chest.
Oh, chest,
yeah,
okay.
No regrets.
I'm kind of being spoiled because a lot of people, and there was a part of me that thought that. I was thinking, I am literally getting paid to color for a living. It was 1 year and it was a good year that I learned a ton, and I'm super thankful for it, and it really built my stamina.
So real quick before we get into today's message, I just wanted to let you know that we share tons of amazing tutorials, tips, and advice for artists on this channel. So if you are an artist or you're a creative person, definitely like and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so that you can find out when we put out more awesome videos like this for yourself. So what made you initially want to write a book, Elli? You know, you're an artist, you're a painter, you know, your profession, you're not like a writer by trade. So what was the initial spark of inspiration or calling, you know, or tugging?
I always knew, I think you have that too. You have always felt like you're gonna write a book, you know, you definitely have felt that. And maybe that's everybody. Maybe everybody has a book inside them.
Yeah.
Or several books inside them. I always felt there was a book inside me, but I always felt like I wasn't adult enough to do it. Like I wasn't successful enough, or I didn't have the capabilities. I wasn't a good enough writer. All those things sort of stopped me or kept me from like seriously pursuing it. I didn't even get as far as knowing what I would want to write about. I just always would tell people, yeah, one day when I write my book. I would say that all the time. One day when I write my book, even though I had no actual intention. And also my grandfather was a writer, and he wrote, you know, I don't know, like 30, 40 books. And Dad has always said that when he retires, he's gonna write books. And now it turns out he is writing books and publishing them. So it's in my genes, I guess, but I didn't actively pursue it, and it wasn't, when I did write it, it wasn't on my goal list. It was a complete interruption from, I think, from heaven. It was a complete interruption. It's like God just like tackled me down to the ground and was like, write this book, because it was 4th of July, 4 or 5 years ago, could have been 5 years ago now. And we had some friends over, and we were watching fireworks in our backyard, and all of a sudden, literally out of nowhere, I got like in my gut, it was like in my belly, this incredible urge to write. And I don't write, I don't even write blogs, I don't write. And it wouldn't go away. And I was like, I gotta write. I just had to be on my computer writing. And I was getting super antsy because they weren't leaving and they were staying late, and it was like past 10 o'clock. And I was thinking, they gotta get out of here because I have to write. So they finally left. And then I got my computer out, and it was like, it was uncomfortable. It was like inside of me, it had to come out. And I didn't even know what I was gonna write. So I was thinking, I don't even know how to write a book. I don't even know what you do. How do you start? And I was thinking, I probably need an outline, but I didn't really know how to make an outline. And I was too anxious and had to write so bad, I couldn't even research like how to write or where do you start, which is what I would normally do.
Yeah.
I just had to write. So I was feeling really antsy and thought, okay, a synopsis, that's what you start with. I don't know if that's true, but I was thinking, I'll just write a synopsis. Like if I were to write a book, what would it be about? So I wrote out this synopsis, which I think was about parenting. I don't even think it had anything to do with what I actually wrote. It didn't go away. I was just trying to get the feeling to go away so I could go to sleep. And it didn't go away. So then I wrote out a list of stories worth telling, just stories from my life that are worth telling. And kind of the ones I say all the time, I started with those. So I wrote out a list, and it ended up being like 12 stories. And I thought, well, that's like chapters. Okay, that's a good place to start. I'll just write out each story, almost like short stories, you know, and that's how I'll do it. So it went away enough to go to sleep. And then I thought, well, if in the morning I'm feeling lazy about it, or like I'd rather paint, I just won't do it, you know? It was just a weird thing that happened. But when I woke up, that feeling I had the night before was still there and really, really strong. And I couldn't do anything else. I couldn't paint, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything.
John said he had to bring you food.
Yeah, and I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't have, because it was the summer, I think, and back then things were slow in the summer, because you know in Arizona, nobody's around in the summer. I had like 2 weeks off where I wasn't teaching anything. And I think it was a break during the mastery program. They have a break around there in the summer. So I literally, for 17 days, I just wrote. And it was just like morning, noon, and night. I had complete energy just to write.
2 fingers at a time.
2 fingers at a time. It's true. I'm a 2-finger typer. and a one finger texter.
Three fingers kind of,
Wait,
right?
are you
Like,
really a two-finger typer?
Yeah.
I've seen her.
On your laptop, you just type with 2 fingers?
Yeah. Every day that I would write at night, I would read to you guys what I had written.
Yeah, I remember that.
And when I was done with it, I was like, this is a terrible book. It's just a big run-on sentence about my life. Like, who's gonna read this? I was really bummed out because I was like, why did that happen? But I knew something special had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody told me, somebody wrote a book on a train in like 15 hours or something,
Wow.
or 20 something hours. He wrote an entire book.
And they didn't have laptops back then.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, and so I was thinking, okay, something special happened, and then I just let it sit for probably 6 months, and then I rewrote it, and it actually became a story, and then it's been rewritten a bunch of times, edited a bunch of times, you know. But yeah, the first draft just like landed on me. There was no avoiding it.
That's like an artist's dream right there, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
like
true.
what every artist dream of, is having, you know, whether they're a writer or, you know, a poet, a musician, or anyone, that they want to make it all in one sitting, you know.
Yeah.
That's like the dream. But then what you realize after
That's when
that
the work
first
comes in.
draft, it's like, okay, that was just the beginning. That was like 3% of the process.
Totally.
Because like after that you have to edit and edit and edit
And
edit.
rewrite.
Yeah, and rewrite and completely scrap whole chapters. And how long was after the 17-day phase, how long was it for like the first edit?
The first edit probably took me like 3-4 months to rewrite it.
And who were like the initial people that you showed the book to? Was it just everyone that you could tell, or
No,
were you pretty selective?
The run-on sentence one, I just showed you guys, the family. Nobody else read it.
That would be so cool if you had like the
I do.
first draft of it.
I do.
No, did you found it?
Yeah, I have all the drafts.
Oh, good.
Probably on your laptop, right?
That's
Yeah.
cool. Someday you should share that with everyone. Are you too scared to?
No, but it's just like, it's not good.
Yeah. Well, we can someday, you know, for the 30th anniversary, we'll publish, or maybe after you die or something, we'll publish every draft, you know, special
Yeah.
collection of Unemployable.
After it got edited, after I rewrote it and it got edited twice professionally, I printed it. I never published it because I wasn't sure if it was worthy of
Yeah.
publishing.
You didn't want to like set it in stone.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure if it was finished or if it needed more editing or what. I printed it, and I printed 500 copies and sold them at the time. So this is probably 3 years ago, I would say. No, probably more than that,
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah, I came around like 3.5 years ago. So.
And it was before.
Yeah, you had already had the book. Like when I first moved in, I started reading your book. So.
Okay, so I printed it without publishing it, and that's the first title you're talking about, The Revolution of an Artist. A lot of people read it and, you know, and really enjoyed it and loved it and felt inspired by it. And so that's what gave me the confidence to want to really make it,
Like actually publish it.
to actually publish it. And so it got rewritten from that point, and that's when you really helped me make it, I think, even better. And there's so many other stories added to it. It has a whole different ending. It's really different than that first.
Yeah, the heartbeat of it is still the same. Like
Yeah.
the core of it's still the same.
Same idea.
Yeah, it's just, you know, some sentence tweaking and, you know, less spoilers.
A lot
There's
less
more
sp-
suspense, definitely.
Well, and there's tons of metaphors
Yeah,
that weren't in there. I mean,
motifs,
it
yeah.
really got rewritten, and
It's a whole new book.
a bunch of stories.
It's been such a process, you
Yeah.
know? It's like, not because it's been so difficult, but because we've been doing so many other things too at the same time.
Yeah.
Finally, like we get to put it out there.
After
and people
5
get to
years.
read it and,
Yeah.
you know, like it's
Yeah.
available to everyone.
Yeah.
And not just the people who come by the studio to buy the book or,
Yeah.
you know, just, you know, friends and family. But because I really think a lot of artists are going to have their lives like totally changed as a result of the book. You know, like a lot of people need to read what's in there in order for them to have the same inspiration and confidence, really, in order to pursue a passion for art.
Yeah. I think even non-artists would get a lot out of it
Totally.
because it's for anybody who has a dream to pursue.
Yeah, let's make everyone on this planet unemployable.
Yeah.
It was coming to me like a while back when you were talking about how the book hit you at once. Really special about this book and just how it all happened is that you, when you've had that urge to write, you just followed it. Because I think a lot of people would if they get that feeling, I think like you said, maybe everyone does have a book inside them or something they have to get out. And when they get that feeling, they're too scared because they overthink it and they think they're not ready, or it's not for them, they're not good enough. And so that then it just leaves them. And then it's like, oh yeah, I was never meant to happen. But I was just thinking about Elizabeth Gilbert and how she said the muse brings these ideas like all the time, and anyone can get this idea, and it's like this burning thing, and just you have to follow it and you have to like get it out there. And if you don't, someone else will do it.
Yeah, it's so true. So many people think, just touching on what you said about not being like a good enough writer. So many people think that and, share that. But something that really impacted me in Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was he said, it's not, they don't give out the New York Times Best Writer Award. They give out the New York Times bestseller.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's not like the people who are the best writers don't sell the most. It's kind of unrelated.
It's super true, and it's the same thing goes for art.
Yeah, it goes
the same thing
towards
for art.
anything, not just writing.
Yeah.
But anything creative people want to pursue but feel like they're held back. But if you get that feeling, you have to follow it, or it's just,
Totally.
it's going to move on to the next person, or it's an opportunity missed.
It's not to say like don't try to elevate your skill to the highest level possible. Because
Right.
Definitely you should.
But there's definitely a window of good enough.
Yes,
for sure.
exactly.
You don't have to be the best.
There's a point at which like people aren't thinking about the writing, which you don't even really want people to think about the writing anyways. You don't want them to sit there. The only people who do that are literary critics, and who cares what they say?
Yeah.
It's about, does the story resonate with people?
Right.
And everyone has the story inside of them.
Yeah.
Just get your writing skills good enough to a point where, people aren't like,
They're not an
"Ooh,"
obstacle. Yeah.
Like, oh, that doesn't make sense,
Right.
So.
But that's what good editors are for.
That's true.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite stories from the book?
So basically, this story was very scary, but it was a huge adventure. And I think I was 13. Yeah, I was 13. And it was like our first trip to Greece as a family, and the first time Dino ever went to Greece. So it was pretty exciting to do this whole family trip together. And it felt like, in a way, we were experiencing Greece for the first time, because I haven't been back. I mean, I didn't go back since I was like 5 or 6. So my mom had this very romantic idea of all of us riding horses on the beach, gated horses that were these Greek mythology, like ancient, yeah.
Pegasus.
Yeah. Basically, it just did not go to our plan. Adventure where all the horses went wild and we had no control over them, and they just took off running back to their barn and we couldn't stop them. And we were just all praying out loud for a miracle, because we really felt like we were going to die, because they're running towards this road, and it was just so scary, and they're running, taking us through olive trees, and they're like crashing in our faces, and the saddles were literally pieces of wood, like flat.
Oh my gosh.
Like it was so uncomfortable, like we didn't have any grip, and I'm getting like, my heart's racing thinking about it.
It's amazing that you own a horse now, and you have had a horse ever since.
That is the only time, maybe this is a spoiler alert, that was the only time I fell off of a horse, was in Greece. After, all these years of having horses, that was the only time I've fallen off.
Well, you have to read the story, because it is much more harrowing than that. There's a lot more details involved. There's more people involved. A lot more things happen, and the significance of it is what's important.
Yeah.
Like why?
In context.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor.
What was one of the hardest stories to write?
Definitely about me and John. We had a terrible marriage in the beginning, and I mean, I was this close to divorcing him. And I would say the first 6 years of our marriage were awful. So I write about that, and how we overcame it, and how we both had to change. And, but it was hard to relive who I was back then. And I didn't enjoy that, because I've grown as a person. I'm definitely not perfect, and I need to continue to grow, but it's hard sometimes to revisit yourself. I'm sure you can relate.
100%, yeah.
And it's painful because you feel like you've overcome it and you've become somebody else. So when you go back and in writing, you have to relive it and you have to be there again. You have to feel it again.
You're like a method actor.
Yeah. And so it's painful and difficult, and it's hard to look at John as he was either. I mean, also. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest part to write. But because it's so valuable to see how people do change and you can come through it.
Yeah.
And just even, you know, the whole story with my dad and, you know, how much he, you know, fought me and John getting married and being together. And then at the end, how you see that turn around and change. And it's, is that a spoiler? That's probably a spoiler. But
And then at the end, you know, it's happily ever after and,
yeah.
you know.
No, but like the whole, it's a, you know, a lot of artists really struggle with their families accepting and supporting their dreams. And not just artists, anybody. A lot of parents have these ideas for their children and they want their children to live out this certain life and, you know, go to this college and do this thing and have this career and, you know.
Financial stability.
Yeah, and in a way, I think it's a way to sort of vicariously live through them the mistakes they made and they don't want their kids to make or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I definitely went through that with, you know, my dad being Greek. He had definite opinions about, you know, what a man should be that I would marry. And he had less opinions about what a woman should be. As long as, you know, you had babies, you know.
And cooked and cleaned.
He was like, if you marry a real man, you can hire that out. That was his opinion. That was what he was saying. Yeah. He thought the woman should be having children and a princess in a castle. And he felt that was the life he gave me as his daughter. He felt like I was a princess and no man could ever fill his shoes because he spoiled me with anything I could ever want. And so, and he definitely would buy me anything within his power. He definitely aimed to spoil me. But, you know, that doesn't mean that that's how I measure people, you know?
Yeah.
And you're not gonna like equate what kind of husband you have based on how many times they buy you chocolates.
Yeah.
You know, but that's how he thought, so.
So John reading the book, were there ever any arguments with him when he like read certain parts of the book?
Yeah, a little bit. I think when I first wrote it, I don't even remember what his reaction was, but I feel like it got a little more honest, actually. I think in that first 17 days when I wrote it, I was thinking as I wrote it, oh, people are gonna read this like, you know, John's gonna read it, my kids are gonna read it. I whitewashed a few things, just naturally, but then over time with you and other people saying, no, you really need to tell the truth of how it really is. I got braver about doing that. So he read it for the first time just, you know, like recently. And since the first time, you know, and it's changed a lot in that time. So he was reading it, and when it's bad about us, he was going, oh, I don't think I can read this. Oh my gosh.
I could imagine it'd be painful.
Yeah, and he was like, why did you write this? Oh. He was getting really mad at me. And then I was like, well, just keep reading. And then after he got like through it and into a different chapter, he was like, yeah, this is pretty good. Okay, yeah. Because he could see himself, you know,
evolving as a character.
Evolving. There's some point in there where I'm kind of mushy about how I feel about him. And then he's like, yeah, you're making me cry. Yeah, this is really good. Yeah. Okay. And so then he really liked that part, you know.
Writing a book about your life because it just invites everyone around you. It's not just your book, you know, it's like your family's book in a lot of ways. It is your book because it's, you know, you wrote it, it's from your perspective.
Yeah, but
it really does involve your whole family.
It exposes other people.
What was it like growing up with a mom who was, and actually a mom and a dad both, who worked full-time as artists, who are working, you know, in that career, in their passion?
I don't think I realized like how lucky I was to have two parents who worked at home. We got to be around them all the time and have such a creative, fun lifestyle until like, I don't think I really noticed that until I was like maybe 10 or 11 maybe, and I was going to like a public school with just being in this classroom with like all these kids that were so different from me, and I was like realizing that like I just had such a different life, and it was at times like really hard to relate.
What were the main differences?
Sadly, like a lot of my friends, they all had like broken families, and I mean they wouldn't have like fun things to do after school because their parents were in a job. It was hard for me to relate to that, and I could just come home, see my parents, and we just all hang out. And yeah, it just felt like it was just so different.
Yeah.
And when they came over, they felt the difference too. They felt like it was just more of a family, and like I think it's really different having parents at home for sure. I don't think any of my friends had their parents self-employed, like all their parents had jobs. Well, also like another difference was when I went to my friend's house, their parents were watching TV, or like the dad wouldn't come back till later, or I wouldn't even see the parents around at all. And then in my family, when my friends came over, it's like we all hung out together.
Well, another really interesting thing, you and all of your siblings ended up becoming artists, which, you know, in a lot of scenarios with parents and kids, the kids want to be something totally different from their parents, you know, almost as an act of rebellion.
I did want to do that. Definitely. I went through that phase. I was like 12, maybe. I don't know, 11, 12. I wanted to be a scientist for some reason, even though I didn't really like science in school, but being in nature and like seeing things and like observing it, I thought, oh, that's science, and I liked that. And then I looked at my parents as artists and thought, I want to do my own thing. Like just because they're artists, I don't want to just feel like I have to follow what they're doing. But any spare time I had, and especially when I started doing like online school, I had so much free time, and I would spend that doing something creative. I would probably be in my room drawing for hours in a day, and that's just what made me feel the best. I just had like the most fun time doing that. So then I started realizing like art was important to me, and I couldn't escape that.
So you paint a really beautiful picture of like you guys getting to spend so much time together, but I know that you were working all the time too, and you even hired a nanny, and you know there were a lot of times when you didn't get to spend all that time with your kids. Do you feel like you ever missed out, or like was there any like regrets ever for like hiring nannies, or you know how, because you do have to make some sacrifices when you have a career and you're really serious about it. So I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I could just share maybe like my perspective. Because I knew they're just in the studio painting, I never felt like, oh my gosh, I'm like abandoned or something. And our nanny was very fun to play with. She played Barbies with us, she cooked us really good food, and she was like a really good friend to have. So we all like enjoyed her. Every time she came over, we were like looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And the nanny was in the house. Like
Yeah.
so they didn't leave their house and have to go somewhere foreign or different or, you know, uncomfortable. They were in their own home with their toys, with their room, with each other.
Yeah.
4 siblings, you know. Maybe at a time it was just you and your sisters until Dino came.
Yeah. Then I was the nanny.
You were never the nanny.
I remember having to watch everyone for like a couple years there.
When was
Remember
that?
you had Dimitra Appreciation Day?
Well, you used to do a lot for them.
I'm saying, we had a day of the year. It was like dedicated to
you.
It was probably no, because I always had a nanny until they went to school, until Dino and Dahlia went to school.
It was probably during the summer.
It was probably in the summers and weekends and off times, or you know, in the evening when the nanny wasn't there. It's probably all the other times. And yes, we did have a Dimitra Appreciation Day because I felt bad for her because I would be like working and yelling out of the studio, Dimitra, change your brother's diaper, or Dimitra, go make him lunch. Can you make him lunch? And she was like 7, 8 years old making everybody lunch, you know? And I started to feel kind of, you know, a little bit guilty about that. But then when she had her career going, the whole thing flipped around, and Dahlia and Daphne used to help her prep her paintings, paint the sides, packing, shipping, organizing. They would organize your art supplies, more Daphne than Dahlia.
Made me lunch.
They made you lunch. Yeah, and we noticed, wow, the tables have turned. Like she used to make them lunch, now they're making her lunch, because she couldn't keep up, with demand and what was required of her to work at 15.
Yeah.
So, and you even hired Daphne at one point to kind of be your assistant, I remember.
I took turns hiring Dolly and Daphne, and then sadly, it didn't work out.
After some time.
Well,
they got burned out.
They got
When
burned
they're
out.
11 and 13,
Yeah, $50 seemed pretty
I
good,
remember
but
one time,
Dahlia spilled an entire smoothie on my prints, and I got so mad. And that was like the end.
I remember when Dahlia spilled an entire coffee on my computer. Do you remember that?
oh my gosh.
Dahlia.
Tangent.
Well, anyway, to answer your question, I did not feel so guilty.
Yeah.
At one point I did. Dahlia was a newborn. You're going to experience this soon. Dahlia was a newborn, and I was holding her in the rocking chair, and I was looking at her, and she was smiling at me, and I was just like so happy, that I had her, and she was just so beautiful, and then I had this like sinking, awful feeling like, wow, in just a few weeks, because I had made the decision that the only way I could keep up with our lifestyle is if I hired a nanny. And we didn't have a nanny with Daphne and you. Your dad and I just took turns, so it started with Dahlia. And so just having like Daphne, still a baby, Dahlia, a newborn, and she was like 4, 4.5, it was just too much. Anyway, I was looking at Dahlia and just thinking, oh, I'm a terrible mom. Look at what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna, not spend any time with her, and I'm gonna be painting for money. And so I started to just think about, what am I doing here? I'm ruining my life. I'm ruining my children's life. And then it just hit me as I was looking at her face, and she was smiling at me, and I was just thinking, I have 3 daughters. 3, they're gonna grow up and become women one day. Do I want them to put their dreams on a shelf just to be a mom, or would I want them to have it all, to have both, to be able to be a mom and raise a family, but also wholeheartedly pursue their dreams? And it was like, in an instant, I knew the answer. It was like, for sure, I want them to be able to do both. And so I thought, I have to model that. I have to find a way to do both.
Yeah.
I can't sacrifice my dreams just to play Barbies with Dahlia and Daphne and Dimitra. I have to find another solution. And so I thought, okay, we'll try out this nanny thing and see if that works, and see if everybody's happy with that. And it worked great. It was wonderful. She only came 3 to 4 days a week, and she came for about 8 hours in that time. And she made lunch for all of us. She even got dinner. It was like we had a wife. It was really great. And she was happy because she was making money that she wouldn't normally make. So it was a win-win for everybody. And the kids loved it because they actually had somebody sit on the floor with them and play Barbies. I didn't normally do that because I was busy cooking or doing dishes or cleaning, doing their laundry or doing something else. But at night, we did play. And then when we weren't working, we got to spend a lot of time with them playing. We swam in the pool, we went on bike rides, we went places, we did a lot with them. We would all go out to dinner and everybody would come. We weren't so divided. And it worked out great, actually. And so looking back, I have no regrets. But that one moment I did question everything until I thought about, what do I have to model for them to have the life I think they would want. And if somebody's dream is to be a mom, that's what their vision is for their life. There's nothing wrong with that. They don't have to have a career too. I'm not saying that.
But you did have a career and you wanted it and you didn't want to put it away.
No, but I didn't want to also be a bad mom and neglect my children. I wanted both. And I think a message women get in culture today is you can't have both.
You have to choose.
You have to choose. And if you choose a career, you're being a bad parent. And I don't think that's true.
And I think a lot of it comes from this notion that it all falls on the mom.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a huge part of your story comes in, is John really supported a lot in the typical, stereotypical mother type functions. You know, he
Yeah, we joke about
definitely-
that I'm the dad and he's the mom.
He definitely, you know, supported a lot, and a lot of the nurturing, you know, caring, playing with kids and stuff.
Totally.
And, you know, it
You have
takes
just
two.
as many memories, if not more, with your dad than you do me. It's not like most kids that have all their memories with their mom,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, he played Barbies with you guys.
Yep, and he would roller skate in the house.
Yeah, he would. That's right. I would come out of the studio and John would be with his roller skates on and no shirt, flying through the house, and all the kids are following him on their roller skates, and they would roller skate in the house.
With 80s music.
Anyone who's watching this who knows nothing about your lives or the, you know, the book at all is thinking, wow, what a cushy, easy, comfortable life. Like so happy all the time, which is good. That's awesome. Like it was, I'm sure, happy the majority of the time, but there also were some really tough times and
Yeah.
some really difficult times. And one of them in particular is a time that affected almost everyone in the US, if not the world, or the majority of the world, which was 2008. And, you know, being an artist at that time, I'm really curious, you know, on your perspective, what was it like going through that? Because you had shit hit the fan, you know, as a lot of people did, to put it lightly. And so what was it like going through that and recovering from that? And particularly as an artist, because there have actually been a lot of people, you know, talking right now about a potential recession. And so I think it is almost timely to hear your perspective on how an artist can still thrive during a time like that.
Well, yeah, everything wasn't, like you said, perfect and wonderful and, you know, blissful. But most of the difficulty happens here. You know, it's like, it's your perception of things, and it's the fears and lack of belief. So I went through everything every other artist goes through, you go through. Mm-hmm. We all have self-doubt, we all have fears, we all have these feelings like, I'm gonna fail, I'm not gonna be able to make it, nobody's gonna like my work, people are gonna stop buying my work. Okay, they bought it then, but they're not gonna buy it now. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm gonna run out of ideas. One day I'm just gonna not be able to paint. I mean, there's a million weird ideas you get as an artist that haunt you, and you struggle with those self-doubts. And almost everything I went through, anytime something, let's say bad would happen, we would do a show, like an art show, and put a whole lot of effort and money into something and not get one sale. And that would be like, oh my gosh, I'm not an artist anymore. I'm gonna starve. My children are gonna starve. All your doubts just get in there. And I think this book is just basically, if you keep persisting, if you keep working at it, if you keep trying, you're gonna have enough victories that your whole life is a victory. And it's those setbacks that don't have to be as difficult if we don't make them that difficult, if we don't get embroiled in that self-doubt.
Yeah.
But in 2008, it was a big whopping one of those, because out of our control, we did, lose everything. But looking back, I learned a lot. And our biggest mistake was we had all our eggs in one basket, and we relied too heavily on one dealer. And so all of our art sales were going through this one dealer. So when that dealer went broke, we went broke, it affected us. And then we had to hustle in a recession to try to find other outlets. And what I've learned since then is you want your fingers in lots of pots, and you want to diversify and have multiple streams of income, whether that's prints, originals, different price points, lots of different ways to sell it. You're selling your art online, you're selling your art in galleries, you're selling your art through reps, you're selling, you want to sell your art in lots of different ways, because if Instagram decides one day to deplatform you, or you can't have
or
all,
it just dries up and people aren't
or just dries up and people aren't using it, like what's going on with Facebook, you're in trouble. So you don't ever want that. You want to be diversified and use lots of different ways to make your sales. And then I think you're more safeguarded than you would if you had a job.
Yeah.
because no matter what job you have and what industry it's in, it's never foolproof and it's never safe all the time.
Look at all these people working for Facebook, for companies like Shopify even. Huge companies are laying off employees by the thousands. And these are people who are working in the tech industry.
Yeah.
People who, they say the jobs, like it's the best job to get.
And one of the reasons why I know I'm unemployable is because in 2009 or 8, maybe it was 8, I don't know, around that time when everything crashed, I tried to get a job. I did, and I was totally unemployable. I couldn't even remember the name of my last employer. And I didn't have phone numbers, I had no references. Because I spent 15, 18 years in the art world. I go, I own my own business. Oh, what was your business? I was an artist. It's like nobody takes that serious. So I couldn't get hired at Walmart. I couldn't get hired at Costco. I mean, nobody was hiring.
Wow.
So the only way we managed and we made money is hustling. We just had to hustle and like go into every tent show and sell our art in every which way. And eventually, because we had to shift gears from this dealer to making it happen on our own, that took time. That took, a good 6-8 months to figure it out. And that's what really hurt us. But even in downtimes, even in a time of recession, we were making enough money by diversifying. Should be really comforting to anybody pursuing a career in art. And that's why I believe in it so much, because I know you can still make it as long as you're diversified in any kind of an economy.
Yeah.
There's always somebody buying some form of art, no matter what. And art makes people feel better.
Yeah, during times of recession, I can't remember what study it was, but there's a study that I read that entertainment, movies, music, and arts all are more popular during times of recession because people are looking for an outlet.
Right.
People are looking for something to distract them. This is definitely going, if we do enter a recession, which it's probably looking like we will, or I don't know, who knows?
You never know.
Who knows?
Who
but
knows
it
what's
is looking that way.
Yeah, it's looking that way, and the people in the media certainly want you to think that it's looking that way as well. If it does go that way, then it is good to know that artists can still thrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me personally, 2020 and 2021, like both these years have been way more profitable than any other year selling originals because they're at home and want something beautiful to look at.
So the moral of the story is this book is not just a fun, it's all things that we've described, but it's more than just a story about a family, it's a story about an artist and, being almost unshakable in her pursuit of her passion. Why I said before in the beginning that it's so important for every single artist out there to read this is because the amount of information, it's so hard to compact 25 years worth of experience into one singular item, and you've done that with this book.
I'm super excited about all the people that'll read it and what it'll do for them. I feel like it's super inspiring. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. I just
Well, you've received
it's the story.
messages from people too.
Yeah.
Like it's like a lot of people have already read the previous version of it.
I know I can say this with total confidence. I wish I could have read a book like that when I was first getting started. It would have really fueled me in those times where I had doubts or I second guessed my decisions. It really would have given me the inspiration I needed to keep going and keep trying things. I highly recommend it for anybody that's really wanting to pursue a dream and you feel it tugging inside of you, calling you to it, and I think that it would really inspire you and motivate you to take some steps in that. And if you are taking steps in that, it'll give you what you need to overcome those times where you doubt. And also give you the excitement and joy to look forward to, a whole path of success. And I think tons of artists and people that pursue their dreams have stories just like that need to be shared, and so that other people are inspired and motivated.
So if you're watching this and you're a lady who wants to, start pursuing her passion, if you're an artist who wants to start pursuing their passion, if you're anyone out there breathing and you have something inside you that's calling you to do something great with your life, then you should read this book, because after you read it, you're going to be unemployable too. So you can get a copy of the book for yourself on Amazon or through the link in Elli's bio. Just look up Unemployable, the Odyssey of an Artist, and get your copy today. You will not regret it. It is so good, and I actually have read it multiple times